Guess who won, Brian? Sony
Oh!
again. Hey, everyone.
What's up,
Oh,
guys?
wait. Let's enjoy. Yay. Okay.
Where are the I don't see the comments. Where are the comments? Are they coming in or?
Oh, they're coming in. I see them. It's like
Are
people
we on the
rushing in.
Remember that time you and I went live? We were in the wrong lobby. We're like, where the
Yeah,
hell is everybody?
I know. Like,
What's up, Chase?
I clicked on the wrong live stream, right? So, really
We're in
quick.
the lobby alone. What's up, guys?
Hey, everyone. If you guys just jumped in, literally, because we just started, we have the topics on the table to our left. So we're going to go over all these things. So I don't forget. And of course, we'll take your questions. And we're going to say hello to everyone. We are Stop the FOMO, me and Brian's Tech Therapy, my bromo brother. And we're here to give some flowers, but it's flowers to everyone, not just Sony. I think there's a lot of context to be had, right, Brian? So I know, Brian, you just had your take on Sony is the ultimate king of Europe, of America, and who knows? When I think there's another shootout in Germany happening, it may end up
Yeah.
winning the German one if they didn't already. I don't follow that one because I don't speak German.
Yeah.
But ultimately, this definitely disagrees with a few owners and a few reviewers. Ratings was not impressed by the Bravia 8 Mark II. And they stand by it, right? Because they have their own grading and ranking system. And to them, it was a meh TV. Slightly worse than the A95L in some things, slightly better in others, but ultimately not worth the upgrade. As far as they're concerned, they prefer the S95F over the Sony Bravia 8 Mark II. So, guys, reasonable minds can differ.
Well, let's set the stage, FOMO. So
yep, let's
the
set
reason
it up.
why we're doing this, the reason why we're doing this video, and my video that just aired really was to give Sony its flowers. It won the second most important, most world-renowned shootout, being Vincent Tio's HTV test in the UK. It also, the Sony Bravia 8 Mark II won the Value Electronics TV shootout in July, which we are connected to and we are part of. And the reason why we want to do this is that it is now it sets the stage for, out of the best TVs in the world, which would be these OLED Z95B from Panasonic, LG G5, and the Samsung S95F, the Bravia 8 Mark II, regardless of how it's been treated this year by a lot of people. Actually, it won both enthusiast shootouts. These are not easy shootouts to win, which is why FOMO is breaking this down today. But my video was really to give them their congratulations, whether you agree with it or not. Every year since FOMO and I have been part of YouTube, and it's a long time now, we've always heard FOMO, wait for Vincent's shootout. Wait. And then this year, I talked to him before his shootout. I know Vincent now, and then his shootout came out, FOMO, his shootout comes out, and it was quiet, man. He wasn't quiet, but the TV world was very, very quiet. I didn't hear much. We don't watch a lot of the creators that would, I guess, I didn't see any content even made on it other than the videos that you and I talked about. So FOMO, I guess the thing is, are we here to talk about the different categories? Run us through what the conversation is. But I think we have to give Sony credit for winning another shootout, and Vincent's being blind is a whole different thing.
Yep. And we're going to go definitely hit a lot of those themes as we go through not just his shootout and our shootout and the context of consumer decision making. I think this is so important because oftentimes I saw this one comment on Vincent's video, which was, oh my gosh, I have to wait another year. I cannot afford a Sony Bravia 8 Mark II, but I could afford Samsung S90F or whatever. But I'm going to skip it because I want this winner, right? And to me, it pained me only because now I don't know what his use case is. Maybe it's exactly like what Vincent had set up, right? Reference this and that. But it pained me because what if he could have enjoyed the S90F, but he's holding out for the more expensive Bravia 8 Mark II, thinking that's what he needs. And so we kind of have to give context in these discussions and kind of dive into what do these shootouts really mean for consumers, both the Value Electronics one and the one, I keep on, because there's so many versions of Vincent's shootout, HD TV test, right? Or even ratings. I'm sure they might have their own little thing at the end of the year as well, because everyone wants to know what's the best TV. And so before we
Well,
jump
yeah.
in to everything, hey, Dennis, thank you for the super chat. The legends. I'm
What's up,
assuming you mean
Dennis?
us, right? So
Well, let
yes,
me.
here we are.
Well, FOMO. I think the difference between ratings doing their own thing and say a creator saying these are my favorite TVs of the year. These are contests that are held with judges, with a
Yeah,
reference monitor. These are few day events. These aren't just like, hey man, these are my top five TVs. This is especially Vincent's where he steps back and lets a blind test, and he has judges. We have judges. There's calibration as a reference monitor. So this is a enthusiast shootout. So even if ratings decides to say, hey, these are our picks or any other creator, these are different. These are actually events held where the creator, which in this case would be Vincent, isn't really steering the narrative as far as who he thinks wins.
right. And apparently there's going to be an AV Forums one
So,
having their
Chris,
own shootout. So yeah, thank you for that. So we're going to follow that as soon as that's out. So let's start with the Sony dominance. Now, this is the context, right? So you have Sony against all the other TVs compared to a Sony reference monitor. And many of you said, hey, that's an unfair advantage, but
they're
that makes
siblings.
sense, right? I
They're
mean,
blood.
a Sony TV should match a Sony reference monitor. That's exactly how the TVs were designed. It's to match Hollywood because Hollywood, 99% of all studios use a Sony reference monitor. I know there are other brands out there, right? Flanders Scientific is one, but easily over 90% use Sony reference monitors, whether it's the 3110, the HDR1, or the last generation 310, 3010. And so Sony should dominate, by the way. And when it doesn't, it's a surprise to everyone. But take it in context of that. If you don't care about the creator's intent, that means you're not calibrating either. Because if you don't calibrate the Bravia 8 Mark II, I can guarantee you it looks less like the reference monitor than some of the other TVs. Now, I think there's some disagreement. Oh, well, no, I think in Vincent's shootout, the Sony really looked closer out of the box. My TV does not. Out of the box, I've reset it over and over, and next to the G5 and the Z95B and the S95F and even the Bravia 9 to a certain degree, the Bravia Mark II really desaturates the green, it pushes magenta, and it's not exactly the reference monitor. Now, after calibration, it is. It's much, much closer. But if you don't plan to calibrate neither of these shootouts, you have to now look at only one of their criteria, which is out of the box, no calibration in whatever, filmmaker mode. And so out of context, you think, oh, Sony's the best, but you have to be very clear. Much of the scoring is reference monitor, matches it perfectly, and calibrated by Sony, because I think that the whole brand calibration, which will address how that changes things at the end. But ultimately, it's not your use case. I can guarantee you less than 1% is calibrating it to that level because it's $500 to $600 at least to get it professionally calibrated. Now, Brian, how do you take
Can you
these
can you
shootouts?
can you pause for 1 second? I want you to
Uh-huh.
pick up John Spellman's comment and put it on the screen, please.
All right, John, let me put it up.
Just because we should just get this out of the way in the beginning. So we, if you can find it,
If I can find it.
yeah.
None of you
So it's
guys would
not
ever
about
buy a Sony, right? This one, right? Is it
yeah,
this one?
yeah.
All
So,
right.
so John, just so you know, the 83-inch TV behind me is my 83-inch A80L, which I bought, and the TV that I use at home is my 77-inch Sony A80J, which I bought. This year, I bought an 83-inch LG G5. So when I tell you that neither FOMO and I have a horse in the race, and we buy what we want to buy, um, is shows your comment just has no value. So thank you for jumping in and saying hello. But just before you get too far into this, this isn't about TV review samples. We buy the TVs that we want to use. But I have bought my own Sony's A80L 83-inch, and guess what? If there was an 83-inch Sony TV this year, I might have bought that one. But I want to just clear that up very quickly for John before it
Right.
gets too far into the chat.
And to be fair to John,
Thanks,
maybe
John.
he means the chat, none of the chat would ever buy a Sony if they had to pay for it.
Oh,
But
John, then
you
I'm
know,
sorry if that kind you in, but I want to get that
but
out of the way.
it's assuming they got it for free. So let's say he's referring
Yeah,
to
well,
us.
I highly doubt he means the whole chat got him for free. I think he's talking about us.
Us, right? And so my history on
Like my
YouTube as a
TV came in
viewer,
last, FOMO. My TV came in last. You don't
but
see
so did
me
mine.
crying. Like my TV.
Uh, when I started my channel, I had to buy the A9G. That was my reference for a while, and then it
Oh yeah,
was
first winner, I
the
think.
well, no, the A9G and then the A90J, right? Only recently did Sony say, "Hey, here's a Bravia 8 Mark II. Hold on to it and compare it with the other TVs." Blah blah blah.
First
But
year, by
this year, but
first year.
I bought the Bravia 9 because I felt this is a standard I need to have. Sony's not going to send people like all their TVs to hold on to, right? Some TVs, because they'll ask me, hey, FOMO, this year, what TVs do you want to hold on to long term as you're testing TV? And honestly, I think the G5 is, to me, the more of a reference benchmark. And we'll go over that because I think the HDR
Yeah,
impact to me is more important. But the Bravia 8 Mark II, if you guys watch my review, I was not impressed, by the way. Just so you guys know my position, right? I thought the S95F, and I continue to do so, I believe that's the better TV for most people, uncalibrated. Actually, I think it's a better TV, period, uncalibrated. Once it's
which TV is that?
calibrated, then it does address some of the issues, the S95F. And even then, I would probably choose the S90F over the Sony Bravia 8 Mark II for a lot less. But both of
Yeah,
those TVs, I feel, are better for more of you than the Bravia 8 Mark II. Now, I like the Bravia 8 Mark II, but it's not,
oh
to
yeah,
me, the king of TVs for my use case, and I think for my viewers. But if you say to me, FOMO, I am going to calibrate it to the end of the world, and I really want this
yeah,
TV that does really well after calibration, then okay, maybe the Bravia Mark II. But I would still wonder, but the S95F, I don't know. Are you in a dark room? I mean, if you're in a bright room, the S95F
yeah.
is still the better TV. So
So the
I
funny thing,
have
yeah,
to let people know I'm not the Sony guy.
yeah.
I am
No,
this
well,
year.
and
I am a
yeah,
Samsung guy.
well, and the thing is, guys, if you really want to talk about this, the conversation isn't so much about who we think should win. This is who won.
Yeah,
This TV
yeah,
won
that's
both
who won.
shootouts.
It's not like
Yeah, so
we
it's not like I'm
influenced it.
saying, yeah. And why did I buy those two TVs? They are for my studio movie watching. They serve their purpose, right? I
Hmm.
bought the G5 because I'm a gamer, but I can't recommend the G5 over every other TV because I think you're a gamer. We have to know your use case. But as you looking at an enthusiast shootout, keep in mind it's an enthusiast shootout. What that really means. What I find interesting is if your TV wins, it's the end all be all. Your TV doesn't win, it doesn't mean anything. All of a sudden,
Right.
well, but it's so. I want to bring this up really quick because I came to this conclusion even during my video. A lot of you think the A95L is a better TV, and the A because of ratings review. A lot of you have said if the A95L was in Vincent's shootout, it would have won. It would not have won. It didn't win last year. It didn't win against the G4, and more importantly, it didn't win against the new and improved S95F, which has made big jumps in processing, or the Z95B. So you want to take it serious or you don't want to take it serious. Either way, I wouldn't buy a TV based on it, but I'm not the ones in the comments. You guys are. And why we're after this so hard, FOMO, is that every year for years, all we've ever heard, wait till Vincent's shootout, the UK shootout. And now we all have the same TVs. I know the guy. We're friends. I respect him and what he does. And now it doesn't matter. Now, now it doesn't mean anything. So I just find it interesting. So the categories are very important. What is weight is super important as well. But you got to take a second to say that Sony won them both. I don't
Yep.
know why.
Yep.
If any other brand would have won it, it would have been like, oh my God,
Right.
so I think it's a little, the Sony hate is just a little bit much.
And let me move on to this S95F surprise, Samsung S95F surprise, because although Sony won Vincent's shootout, but Samsung won the living room part of it. But Sony came so close to the Samsung that take it on balance, Sony's the winner. But if you're always in a living room condition, right? That's your TV, and you have windows everywhere, the Sony is irrelevant. It has terrible glare handling, by the way. If you guys have windows in your room, the Bravia 8 Mark II easily is one of the worst reflection handling TV. And everyone will agree with me on that. That's objective. It's just not good with anti-glare. The Bravia 8 Mark II is designed for light controlled, glare controlled rooms. And so in a living room situation, the Samsung is the winner. And if you plan to buy a TV to put in a normal living room with lights everywhere and the lights are on during the day, no light control, it is a no-brainer. It's the Samsung S95F. And you add to that, it had, based on their testing, better low bit rate, streaming, processing, all of that. That's the surprise to me. You take those together, and this is why I choose the Samsung, because most of my viewers, all of you, are in that living room condition. Now there are one of you have that man cave, you have light control. It
Yeah.
opens
Less
up
and
your
less too,
choices.
FOMO. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
becoming less and less now. People are getting out of the basement.
right. Now, so, bravo Samsung, I have to make sure I congratulate them on that, because I know in the Valley Electronics comparison, a lot of the judges came up to me and said, we thought we would hate that matte screen. It carried
Yeah.
Samsung to victory there for them as well. And these are judges from both sides of the pond saying, that matte screen works, my friend.
Yeah.
It's annoying,
Yeah.
but it works better than not having it. And that's beautiful.
So here's another thing I want to talk about very quickly, FOMO, is the differences between watching TVs and videos than seeing a TV in Best Buy. There's no more listening rooms or really high end, at least in my area, retailers where you can go see one of these TVs set up beautifully. They're all thrown in stores. Costco is just, there's a commercial on it. There's very little demo material. So you're really seeing these TVs look pretty much their worst. And now the anti-glare, which I hated when it first when we first saw it at CES 2 years ago, FOMO. Yes, we've changed our thoughts on it, but it's so important for you guys to just get out there and see it for yourself. And that's where I
Yeah.
think a lot of people with the anti-glare, we're thinking about what IPS monitors used to look like. And they really, I have grown to not care. As long as sunlight is not hitting it directly, if sun hits it directly, it's unwatchable. So as long as that living room doesn't have a skylight hitting it, then
Hmm.
that is what wins. But there are variables. The G5 and the Z95B are arguably the two better reflection handling glossy screens.
Yeah.
So it's not as simple as long as your living room is set up like freaking Family Ties and you got freaking lights
Family
everywhere
ties.
and it looks like
We
a sitcom. You got the
silver
Golden Girls
spoons.
hanging out.
I love
Unless it's
these.
like, I would have said the Cosbys, but like, unless you have it like that, if you have that huge, and everyone says get blinds, you try telling your wife to get some blackout blinds for you. Anyway,
Yeah, well, the single guys, they can do anything they want, but the wives are like, nah, I don't think so, right? Yeah.
my wife's like, hell no, no sound bar in this room.
And well, okay, so I love this comment here because there's not a bad TV on any of these, meaning no matter which of these four TVs you get, right?
Yeah, they're the best out there.
And wait. Okay, so I think that kind of is a good segue to the G5. The G5 won too, by the way, and it won for the reason why I chose it, which is in the 4,000 nit test that Vincent did, G5 had the best balance of HDR impact, taking it as close to 4,000 nits, more so than any other TV, while preserving tone mapped color detail. And that's exactly what we saw at our spring comparison, where the G5 is like Jennifer Gallo's 4,000, 10,000 nit content. It killed the competition. None of the other TVs came close to that impact that Jennifer wanted, and it preserved so much of that tone mapped detail. That's why I chose it as my long-term HDR benchmark. It's still there, although it's not great, no shadow detail, it's not great here, it's not great there. But you know what? If you guys bought it because you love it for HDR impact, you still win. And that goes back to what we say use case. Before you tell me which TV you should get, you have to share with us what's your use case. You want HDR impact, or all you watching is the Cosby Show, Family Ties, and Silver Spoons? That you can get your
My bad.
LG B5 and you'll be happy, right?
Be
But
fine at Costco, babe. Well, FOMO, I saw a comment too that said, how is the Sony winning sports? Didn't they nerf the brightness? That's the problem with the brush that has been painted. The only preset that isn't bright from Sony is one, and that's the professional preset in SDR. The rest of them are very bright. Are they as bright as the others? No, but this TV is still brighter than most OLEDs most of you have ever seen. So right
Yep.
away, people think that the TV is dim. Even Vincent's his thumbnail says the not the brightest TV didn't win. So
Right.
brightness, I think, has been so overly weighted. We saw that with the G5 getting hit with their firmware update. Now, me comparing them, yes, it's back to its brightness, but like we have to start realizing how not important it is at a certain level. It's not a not bright TV. So we gotta, other than that one SDR preset, the rest of them are very bright.
Yep.
What's up,
And
Robert?
well, this goes to Robert Conrad. He is now a Sony convert, right? He had an LG G5, but he's in love with his
He's
Bravia
still
8
got a
Mark II.
G5. He still got it.
He's got it somewhere. Robert says, I love my Bravia 8 Mark II. If it would have been 77-inch on April 2nd, it would be in my living room. And so that's the other thing is, it's too
Yeah.
bad it didn't come in a 77-inch, but I think Sony will rectify that next year. Whatever QD
Well,
OLED they make next year, I think it will come in a 77-inch.
FOMO, real quick, before we get to Buddy, that was part of what they did to themselves. By not having a 77-inch this year, they left the A95L themselves in the conversation.
Hmm.
They did it to themselves. So saying like, "Hey, by the way, I have this new girlfriend. She's amazing. Oh, but my ex is here. She's just really tall. So if you want her, you can go with her." So I mean, like, they did that to themselves by not having a larger TV. It kept the A95L just hanging around. Plus the rumors that the A95L was brighter and a later panel FOMO. Remember we heard that last year. It just kept the Bravia 8 Mark II a little too close to the Bravia 8 by name
Yep.
anyway. What's up, buddy?
And buddy, thank you for that super chat, my friend. The great news is the TV shootouts are not the Oscars. I think I prefer the way we do our shootouts than the Oscars. Oscars is all a mystery who wins, right? We all know how they roll or the role they play. But at the end of the day, we open up ourselves to improvement and criticism because it's very transparent. We're trying to be objective, right? Whereas the Oscars, like, I'm not a fan of the Oscars, right? To me, it's this giant black box of who wins, who loses, whatever. But at the end of the day, the whole goal of the TV shootouts is to help you make a decision. It's not a back patting contest. Oh, they work so hard, they deserve to win something. It's pretty cruel. And I was
It's
hoping
brutal.
that Panasonic would win more than it did. Honestly, I was very disappointed
Yeah.
that it really didn't win anything. It wasn't outstanding in any one thing. But I
Yeah.
think, I mean, we're going to talk about Panasonic later because it
But
did
in our, but
something
FOMO,
this year that's
in our
unique.
but in our shootout FOMO, Panasonic looked like it was. If we looked at how it was weighted, Panasonic looked like it was going to win.
Yeah.
Like it was right there. So back to what you said about you'd be happy with all these TVs. Again, guys, if you could be at either Vincent's shootout or our shootout, if you could be in the room with us, you'd be shocked at how identical they look. So for me, the personality is stripped out of all of them. You just see what the reference monitor looks like. And then I think you'd all be hard picked to say this one or that one. A lot of it is not the way you think you're seeing it at home. It's not, it's in its most accurate preset. They are calibrated. So they look so close. So to the point of every TV is a winner, you're right. When I saw these guys a couple of years ago, FOMO, with the jewel glass, that jewel eye, the that was that spyglass, the one they use
Right.
for
For the loop,
jewelry.
right? Uh-huh.
They're looking at little flags. I mean, you guys would be probably a little annoyed if you saw how close they were looking at them. You'd be like, "Oh man, that's crazy," but that's how minuscule it is, and that's what's so
Yeah.
important to know that it's that close.
And
What's up,
Jason
Steve?
has a question. Brian, what was the launch price on that 83-inch A80L?
I think the A80L at 83 might have been more than the G5. Maybe
5,000?
nah, it might have been a little bit cheaper. The A90L
4,000?
was no A90 was 8,000. So
Yeah.
it was probably
Yeah.
about. It might have been a little bit cheaper. I got it later in the year, but I know the
Right.
G5 was 6. So they have definitely gone down in price a lot. My A80J, I can't remember what that one cost, but that was Jesus. That was more expensive than any of these TVs. 77.
Yeah. And okay, so this, I think,
Some Sony points, Steve.
the next, hey, Sony Pony, I think he's happy, yes, because Sony won. Now, I think this next topic is all shootouts and comparisons generally, whether it's ours, Vincent's, ratings, Mystery Man from Germany shootout, scoring over weighting. So I'm going to pull out what Vincent did real quick, just because he did such a good job organizing it, and it's worth showing you guys so that we can talk about it really. And let's see, is this it? There we go. Okay, so this is Vincent's chapter index, and if you look at it, right, he had all these categories: near back, color accuracy, HDR, motion, uniformity, video processing, bright room, and then out of the box, and then best home cinema and best living room. And if you break it down further, right, if you look at best home cinema, so this is light controlled room, these are the factors. And then if you look at best living room, you got upscaling, 50 hertz motion uniformity. And so the question I have for you all is it fair or is it accurate in terms of choosing the best TV to have them all weighted the same? For example, let's use best living room TV because this is what most of you guys watch. Is upscaling more important than 50 hertz motion? And in our case, it would not be 50 hertz, but it would be the US
Yeah,
version of that, right? So 24, 48 hertz, whatever it is here. But ultimately, you've got upscaling, you have motion, you have uniformity, you have bright room. Like in a bright room, this is actually kind of new because you're looking at anti-glare, and now suddenly Samsung is killing it with its anti-glare coating. And then you have compression handling, right? So you have streaming on Netflix or YouTube, and how does it handle that? Or broadcast compression, whatever that is. How important is all of this to you? And how do you weight it in a way? Because if you weight it all evenly, maybe that's the way to go. We never have that discussion because I do know that I was a bit unsatisfied with choosing the winner between best home cinema TV, best living room TV. So the Sony definitely won the best home cinema TV at Vincent's Shootout, and it came in a close second for best living room TV. So taken as a whole, the Sony won. But if all you care about is the living room TV, then you'd probably choose the Samsung. But then that's taken out of context if you don't see that. And so how do you
yeah,
weight everything? And I'm just throwing it out there, right? Because
yeah, yeah.
for next year, I plan to talk to the team, but I'll tell you this, a lot of the shootout organizers, they may not want to have a best living room or bright room because it's so inaccurate to what they're used to. So you're like, wait a minute,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because it's so extreme, you go from comparing it against a reference monitor, which is creator's intent, and everyone's trained to know how to calibrate it. You know what you're looking for, to what is ultimately preference in a bright room. You have all these things happening. Colors off, bright lights, you have different color lights, you have glare. It's no longer the reference TV you're hoping to have an objective measure. It's very much preference, and then the brighter TV wins. At this point, anti-glare, bright TV kind of will stand out, and a lot of people, to them, that's offensive. Like, wait, I would never have a house that has no light control, and they might not even want to take part in that kind of a shootout. And so then you might have to have a different shootout where there is no
yeah,
calibration, but then what's your standard? So it's just stuff I'm throwing out there that makes it very hard
yeah.
to ever say one
Well,
TV is the best.
well, and FOMO, I know we talked about that when we were, at M Wave and had some thoughts about what we would do. And that's kind of what we had done is, okay, take the TVs out of the box, put them, let them break in, put them in their out of the box preset, which is typically standard, and then turn off all the eco. And then you would like the flavor of how that TV, whatever the manufacturer wants. But the minute you think about doing that, you're going to have the comment of, are they calibrated? And then so it spins out. Now, FOMO, do you think that upscaling is more important than ever due to streaming? Do you think that should be heavily weighted? Because obviously, then upscaling FOMO, how much processing is being used, how much edge enhancement, how much. So
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting part of it because everybody streams now. So
Yep.
isn't that more important than your HDMI
So
Blu-rays?
so this is where I'm torn a little bit about the way things are scored. If your upscaling is so good already and all four TVs, and now you're really looking for the edge case, I don't think it should be included at all as a criteria because let's say all four TVs, I'm just going to throw this as a conjecture, let's say 2 years from now, right? And we have all these TVs that are amazing, and upscaling is no longer a problem. They all look great, with the exception of this one episode of Ozzy and Harriet on Prime Video. Only the Sony doesn't have the stutter. Okay,
Lassie,
Sony, right? Sony wins on that one, right? That one, but everything else, the Samsung really does look just like the Sony and the
Columbo
LG.
test, baby. Let's put
Right,
it in
right.
there. Put it
In
in.
that one Columbo scene, right,
I'm mad at that.
where the source has a stutter and the Sony's processing is able to address that stutter. No one will see that ever, but
Well,
it's still
Vincent, actually, hold
included.
on. Vincent said that the Samsung actually won motion and it has
Yep.
stutter
Yeah.
in his video. He goes, and he must have been like, oh crap. Oh, really? So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, no, but it goes to your point, which is,
Yeah.
what's important. I think what's important are the criteria where all the TVs continue to struggle. So things where the
Yeah.
TV has pretty much solved, and I'm not saying upscaling is solved. I'm just using it as an example. But I think
Yeah.
to me, motion on the whole is kind of solved for certain things. Uh,
Yeah.
like old TV shows,
With
right?
OLED, with OLEDs
I
too,
think we're fine
later.
with that. Uh, Other ones to me have been solved is color accuracy after calibration. That's solved. I mean, at the end, once you calibrate it and they all look the same, if you have to pause and like squint your eyes, that's solved. Now, before
Yeah.
calibration, that's not yet solved. I still see issues. I mean, Sony Bravia 8 Mark II undersaturates green. I don't need to squint. Whoa, what happened there? Very magenta, right? So that still needs work. So I think color accuracy out of the box is still something we have to include. But there are things where once all the TVs have mastered it, unless it rears its ugly head again with RGB LED, it shouldn't be a criteria because it's then you start looking at only edge cases and you overweight that edge case for the TV that barely beats the next one, and suddenly it's equally weighted as something where all the TVs struggle, and that one should be weighted more
Yeah.
because this is really hard to fix, right? Let's say, blooming and bright detail on an LCD TV. That is definitely a struggle for all LCD TVs. So it's just something that I don't have the right answer, but I definitely think it needs to be addressed when we're looking at the criteria. When
Yeah.
all the TVs are so good and you have to squint, I say eliminate that criteria and leave only the criteria where you're like, okay, I see that's an issue with this TV. Like over sharpening. Whoa, I see it right there. Or over brightening. Oh, I can see the TV's brighter than reference. Let's
Yeah.
knock them down. It's in reference mode. Now, if it's in
Yeah.
dynamic tone mapping mode, of course, but in reference mode, it should not be over brightening. So certain things, if it's obvious to the eye, that's what you want to include. And so my comment on overweight scoring is I think some things are weighted too much because it's insignificant, while other things are not weighted enough because it's still a significant aspect. Now, would this have changed the winner? Maybe not. But in future, and you see it us improving. You see Vincent, he announced this year he had some changes, such
Yeah.
as brand calibration, right? Look at that. So suddenly, and I think this is the way to go, is he invited the brands to send their best calibrating tech team over and say, look, make your TV
Yeah.
perfect. This is the scenes we're using. Can you win on these scenes? And then they will do what they
Yeah.
need to do. And I think on the one hand, someone will say, that's great, each brand gets to do their thing. But here's the other hand. If this is truly for the consumer to take away, whoever they hire as a calibrator, I guarantee you, they're not hiring flying in Sony. They're not flying in LG Korea.
Do some
They're not
Korea
flying,
and Japan.
right? And so now you're like, wait,
Pablo, what's
can,
up, bro? Built the
can you
TV.
really use this? Because if
Yeah.
a average Joe
Yeah.
calibrator, meaning your typical premium calibrator, Dwayne Davis,
Yeah.
Classy, Vincent, if they decided to
Yeah.
do something else and it doesn't end up like the winning TV, now what? So I think on the
Yeah.
one hand, I love that the brand gets, because this has no controversy as far as the brands are concerned.
Yeah.
If you lose, dude, that's on you. But then for the
Yeah.
consumer, how do they get that same level of calibration?
Yeah, so I understand with Vincent why he did it, even though he's known for his calibration and skills. We see that with Robert's shootout the last number of years, with whether it's John, Dwayne, Jason Dustle, Classy. Everybody gets called into question. Okay, who's with who? I mean, we had shenanigans being yelled at while we were in ours. We predicted everybody but Sony. I'm back there sweating like shenanigans. But you're always going to be some conspiracy. Now, Sony has won the Value Electronics TV shootout many years in a row now. I think the last 2 years they surpassed LG by 2 years. Where Vincent's, when I saw him at CES, I said to him after a couple drinks, why did you think the G4 won? You know what he said to me? I didn't pick it. It's a
Yeah.
blind shootout. So, I mean, the fact of the matter is, what's great about the two different shootouts is that let them choose. Where with us, you have a retailer who everyone says, do you get more money for this TV or that TV? Vincent's shootout takes that away. Him not calibrating them, but keeping an eye on it, takes it away from any other brand interference. And
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
just for you guys, when you talk to Caleb or me or FOMO or Vincent, and you see each other at these events, it's not like we're not talking to them. We know them all, which is great. We've worked very hard. We know every brand. We know the engineering teams. We see them at these competitions. It's like they're watching their child compete. It's actually kind of uncomfortable because everyone says, well, I saw somebody say in my video, Samsung, congratulations. You think Samsung gives a crap about coming in second place? They do
Well,
not
that's
care. They're there
well.
to win.
Well, Brian, the person that accused you of shenanigans was one of the brands. He's whispering, "Hey, you think there's some shenanigans happening back there?" I go, "Oh, I gotta tell Brian. Brian, I heard from a brand who will
Listen,
remain unnamed. Is there shenanigans happening back here?" And you got so mad.
and
I'm
the
like,
funny
just
thing is, I'm
because
sitting in the
wait, Brian,
back.
just because
I
the
was
curtains are closed.
And the funny thing is, my TVs that were back there weren't even competing.
They weren't even calibrated.
No, all they were doing was tanning me as we were in the corner. I couldn't even leave that spot. So what's funny is that whole part of the video, FOMO, where they're announcing the winners. I was on air. So I was sweating. I was like
You
Cool
were
Hand Luke
thirsty.
out in the box.
All right, let's get some let's get a super chat out of the way real quick. Thank you,
What's up,
Tyler
Tyler?
West. My LG Z3, so that's an amazing 8K TV from LG that's super expensive, has an issue with no picture. Oh, ouch, right? Imagine paying that much and suddenly there's no picture. Just sound. Okay, I don't want to do a Vizio joke, but that's exactly what happened to my Vizio TV. Just sound when I turn on the
Yeah,
TV with the
a little
remote.
bit of
And I have
difference.
to unplug it to fix it at least twice a week. LG sent me a brand new one, and it still happens. Tyler, you gotta continue calling LG and they will continue to send you a new one until it stops happening. Because when you pay that much, call LG. And it's most likely a bad power board. The Z3 or G3 generation. So the G3 generation, my understanding is it had an underpowered power board, I think, but the G3 is very bright, right? So now the Z3 is, yeah, I don't know what your issue is, but I know that when LG had the larger 83-inch sizes, the power supply was not adequate to power that large size. So if your Z3 is one of the larger TVs, it probably is an issue there. But if LG is going to replace it, call them while you're in warranty and keep on replacing it until the issue stops. But yeah, now blind testing. I think this is one that I love seeing in the comments where it's like, see, it's not a trusted shootout unless it's a blind test. So if you guys don't know what blind test is, the judges have no idea what the TV brands are. And how Vincent does it is he sends them out of the room, he changes the scene, right? Make sure there's no flag to indicate what TV is what, and then he brings them back in, right? And he, so they see the TVs, and of course, a lot of people are saying, well, it's very obvious to many people now, which is the Samsung, because the matte screen, now it is a dark room. So I don't know how easy that is, but I do know if a graphically challenge is still here, he hates that S95F, by the way. And so if you can tell which TV in a dark room with content playing is the S95F, right, and he would, then it kind of takes that part of the blind out, and that leaves the other three TVs, right? But ultimately, though, let's just say you cannot tell which TV is which. Does blind testing make a difference? So here's the irony, right? In the Value Electronics Shootout in July, it was such a close score. Everyone said, you know what? If it was blind, the Sony would not have won because it's clear that the Sony was so close that you guys saw Sony, you pushed it over the edge. And then with Vincent's, the Sony won by such a large margin. My response is now it's obvious that the judges felt sorry for everyone else and raised them up to get them closer to Sony. If it was blind tested, Sony would have destroyed everyone. So
Yeah.
ultimately, the whole conspiracy about not blind testing, it works the other way as well. Maybe the
Obviously,
judges were
yeah.
like, the Sony can't be that good. And we're artificially pulling Sony back. And that's why it was so close at Vol Electronics. Whereas when it's blind tested, the Sony destroyed the competition. And the Panasonic really had a hard time there. And it did better in ours, maybe because, right? But at the end of the day, I think the results also speak for themselves. If you look at the scoring and everything, it's pretty consistent across the board because I think judges, because it's visual, they know what they're looking at. And I notice the level of favoritism is not as I don't know, conspiratorial, nefarious as you guys think, because the judges are very proud of what they do and they're being called in to do it. And it's a thankless job, right? So if anything, maybe they're pissed, and starts marking stuff up because they had a bad day. But what are your thoughts on blind testing, Brian? Personally, I could go either way. I mean, with or without it, it's not a big deal. But
What are you thinking? Like, man, this pizza's cold at TV. 7.9.
you're sweating and hungry. I don't know if you would care. Like, oh my god.
Dude, I killed some pizza on the way home. I think the blind testing is valid to some degree. Obviously, it wouldn't work with us because we know the different screens on all of them. It doesn't matter if I could tell the Bravia 8 Mark II screen over the Z95B. I don't even need it to be matte. I do think there is validity to it because I do think FOMO, even in our shootout, um, if we could do it the right way, I think we'd have each person have the TV alone and not talk to other judges. They walk in, but Sony's reputation of having processing, best processing, best processing, there's no way that doesn't have some effect where someone
Mm-hmm.
says, well, I think the Sony looks better, the processing is better. So I think that's where the blind test really does help is that, you do have people that are fans of the brands or they think in their mind, hey, Sony's got better sound or G5 is the better gaming TV. If you have that in your mind, it's very hard. And Samsung has worked FOMO very hard the last 5 to 6 years, shedding that cartoon vibrancy to be more accurate, and they've actually achieved it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's still a little bit behind as far as the perception of that. So I think
Yeah.
judges in their mind may still say, well, it's a Samsung, it's not good at this. When I think the blind cuts through that and we end up with the same result though. So
Yeah.
that's why this is important that it's different. It took away two things. It took away calibration from an individual, and it took away the judgment of them saying, hey, I like Sony, or Sony being involved in it. And I
Right.
promise you guys, Sony is not flying to the UK with bags of money. It just does not work that way. I really wish it did. Or if they did, nobody's paying me. That would have been nice. I
No,
didn't get any
wait.
food. I was back there sweating my velvet clothes off.
You got no air conditioning, no food,
You got no
and
AC. You think
one
people are
bottle of
getting
water.
paid? My hair was
There's
all
some.
curly.
This is an amazing comment right here that I definitely want to touch on. Uh, does this mean ratings is wrong? And this goes to even larger discussion, right? So let's move to this question. I think it's a good segue to our next topic: reference versus preference. But before that, quick shout out to our sponsor, Ruipro. I use Ruipro HDMI optical cables, as does Brian, right? I mean, you guys
I
have a
do
lot
as
of
well.
choices in copper table. Hey, copper, use whatever you want. I think they're all pretty good. But when it comes to optical, I use Ruipro for all my testing and everything because I do runs longer than 9 feet, and optical is a bit thinner. I don't like heavy, thick cables, and copper over 10 feet is impossibly thick and heavy. So any questions? I've linked it to the product affiliate link below. But yes, Repro is my cable of choice. Now, on to is ratings wrong?
Mhm.
And we guys have to take some context, right? Ratings measures against two things. They have their own patterns and everything that they measure against. And these patterns are objective. And I think they're great for measuring against past product history. So let's say you got the A80J, then the A80L, and then now you have the Bravia 8 Mark II. Ratings could look at that and say, hey, you know what? 3 years ago, this is how they measured in brightness. Now it's this. 3 years ago, this was the color volume. Now it's this. So you have an objective component to it where you see how things improve or got worse. Now you could officially say, oh, the Bravia 8 Mark II actually is worse here, which is one of their conclusions. Wait a minute, it looks like it didn't end up being as accurate after attempted calibration. So I think that's very important. Now, you have to remember, this is much different than how Vincent's shootout and ours at Valley Electronics goes, which is absolute comparison to movie scenes on a reference monitor against each TV calibrated and which one most closely matches a reference monitor. You can win or lose on the ratings comparison and completely do the opposite on ours. Why is that? Because now you no longer have a pattern, right? In order to get those numbers, ratings uses CalMan or whatever software technology meters, and you get a very clear number. Guess what? In a movie scene, those numbers are thrown out the window. Once the TV sees that it's a real scene, they begin to tone map. They change the brightness, they change everything. And more importantly, these measures don't tell you the quality of that scene. It just says, oh, well, this TV can get very accurate on this pattern. But how does it look once it's tone mapped? When you tone map, the colors change. And so the question
Yeah.
is, well, why does the TV tone map? Because you have to, right? You have a brighter content the TV can handle and it's going to do what it's going to do. Ratings can still be right, but I prefer how I do it, which is real movie content, Netflix, streaming, all that. Ratings does not do that. They have their own content that they use to represent, and they want it to be consistent. And you guys know me. One day it's Columbo, the next day it's Bionic Woman, the next one is
It's
Chips,
always
and
Columbo,
then
baby.
right, and Jennifer Gallo's latest content,
Shit.
right?
Yeah, of course.
Alpha, right? So
Yeah.
I try
Oh,
to use
Alpha, great
movies,
movie.
or and this summer it was F1, Superman, Jurassic
Yeah.
World. I try to see what kind of movie you guys are watching. How do these TVs look? This is totally different approach and a totally different winner when I do that than what ratings is trying to give you a sense of objectivity, which is not wrong either. So is ratings wrong? It's their approach. You can disagree with that. And this goes to kind of SD's comment. Every calibrator, like Classy, Vincent, and others, Dwayne, everyone's measured, matched, all of that. And ratings is always the outlier. Ratings is wrong. And so I think their conclusions, I think the testing may be close, but sometimes we have different conclusions. So ratings will look at the numbers objectively, but then subjectively they might say, and you see it in the way they weight their own scores, this is a great family room TV. And someone's going to say, what? But Vincent said this is a better family room TV. Different family rooms, right? A British family room and ratings Canadian, Montreal family room. Who knows? Maybe they have windows in the family room and Vincent doesn't. I don't know. And this goes to
Yeah.
reference versus preference, where which is important to you because you have two different TVs. Reference is exactly how the creator intended, but it must be calibrated in a dark room, and then it will look most like a reference monitor. Preference
Yeah.
is a little bit brighter, a little bit punchier, and I guarantee you, most of you will want preference. Brighter is always slightly better. And I don't know, Brian, what are your thoughts on that? Because I think I am I use reference to compare TVs out of the box, but then ultimately I see preference as a value because some people just like one TV's color science more than the other, even if it's slightly inaccurate.
Yeah, I mean, so going to the ratings conversation, I have nothing but love for ratings. I know them, and they did a lot to help me years ago. So they'll always, for me, get the benefit of the doubt. And their methodology is something they created. Cedric, that team created for many years. Whether it's get the camera and check frame rates. I mean, a lot of what they do is very valuable. I would never say that it's not. I think the issue we've had is again how they weight things and that sometimes a TV kind of gets painted again with the brush of being too dim. And there's such a thing also as panel variance of is this one brighter than the last one they tested? So I think it's very hard. They do a lot of longevity tests, things that none of us could possibly do. So I think their work is very valuable. But I think to say that any of them are the end all be all, whether it's us or them or Vincent or anyone, you really need to take them all together in an aggregate and really figure it out. So I think they're always working, which is why they had a conversation with us. They're looking to change their thing, and they're open to it. I just think that a lot of you guys as enthusiasts are more educated than you've ever been, and you're paying closer attention, which is why in this chat I got people talking about the A95L. I've seen the TV side by side, the 77-inch, which was for many of people thought that was a Gen 3 panel versus a Gen 4 panel. A95L would be a Gen 2 panel. So a lot of what you guys are saying in the comments, you've regurgitated from them, right? So it's important to get a little bit of everybody's thought process, and I do still think what they bring is very valuable, but their methodology is their own.
And I think this theme of reference versus preference. So Getty said, forget accuracy, lie to me, TVs. And I had this long discussion with a Sony rep. He said, accuracy is so important to Sony. He goes, for example, I got a family picture, and I want to see my kid as she was shown in that picture. I don't want a TV to make her look a little bit tanner than she really is, or whatever, right? And I said, I guarantee you, my friend.
Speak for yourself.
I guarantee you, in a family picture with your wife, you and the kid, your wife is out there photoshopping the hell out of that family picture. It's like, no, get rid of that blemish, get rid of this. And so it's definitely preference. Now, he may want his daughter to look the way she is, but when the daughter gets older, what the hell, Dad? I look pale and scrawny.
So, FOMO, funny story. Shout out to Trey from Sony. When we were in Japan, we were doing that karaoke. You went to bed smartly enough. And they were trying to take pictures with the new Apple phone. And I'll tell you, this thing wasn't making us look better. It was adding all kinds of detail. We looked like Skeletor. I mean, we couldn't get a natural image. You couldn't turn the processing off. I know with my Samsung phone, I can barely take a picture without it trying to readjust. Forget about filming with the freaking thing. So I think that processing, to your point, is hands-off processing, accuracy, or adding that little extra reality creation. That's something that Sony, we thought, would never do, and they've been doing it the last number of years, always tone mapping. So it's interesting. Is that better processing, or is that less processing? Mm-hmm. So it's and then gaming as a whole, we talk about that HEIG, it's a whole nother can of worms. So it's really hard to please everyone. A lot of you guys love soap opera effect. Some of you love edge enhancement. You guys, so it's like, it's very hard to say you want that to be completely hands off. But either way, the phone companies aren't going to change. I mean, it's ridiculous.
This takes us kind of what Panasonic did this year, which was to do what Sony did with the A95L and more of it. You know, make it a little bit brighter, specular highlights a little bit brighter, and maybe slightly sharpen it a bit more. And the judges saw that in Vince's shootout and, of course, docked the Panasonic for that because it is a reference comparison to a reference monitor. And unfortunately, Panasonic did not give them the opportunity to disable it, or more importantly, Panasonic did not fly their team in there to disable it if they had a chance to. But ultimately, as far as consumers are concerned, they made the right decision because consumers do like that extra HDR pop. Trust me, they're not going to complain that HDR looks a little bit better. I mean, what was my complaint about Superman this summer? Yeah. It was 100 nits. It wasn't even 100 nits. It was like 95, 90 nits. It was like crazy. And please, Panasonic, thank you so much for making that pop a little bit more, right? For adding a little extra boom into the explosions, right? Yeah. That's preference tuning. And this is what to expect from Dolby Vision 2, by the way. You know, spoiler, we're going to talk about that shortly. But Panasonic did what they thought consumers would want, and they're sticking to their guns. And in a side-by-side, without a reference, or even with a reference monitor, every consumer will say, wait, I think the reference monitor is broken. I like the Panasonic better. They're not going to
Yeah,
realize that the
yeah,
reference represents creator's intent and you're not supposed to look different. They're going to say, this
yeah,
Panasonic looks amazing, right? And so
yeah.
that takes us to you, the viewers. Don't complain that the Panasonic isn't accurate. I think most people want it to look a little bit better. Like what can he say? Lie to me, TV, lie to me. Make everything look better than it
Yeah.
should.
So FOMO last year, I'll never forget. It was the last day of the Value Electronics TV shootout, and the whole room of us were just hanging out, and we were all looking at the G4, and it was that Samurai demo. It was this beautiful orange, right? We were all looking at it, and we're like, "Wow, look at the saturation!" And then everybody at the same time, FOMO points to the reference monitor. He goes, "Wait a second." But everybody in the room that really is an enthusiast really thought for a second the G4 pulled it off. And
Oh
the
yeah, they're
reference
like,
monitor,
oh, look at that saturation. Wait, that's nothing like the reference monitor.
it was like Krypton. It was like, they were like, oh, but I really kind of like that one better. So it's really hard to figure it out. It's hard to do it all.
And let's take what Zorford said,
It
and
was
I
my
probably
favorite TV of the year, too.
it was the one I
Nishat, it
took
was my
home,
favorite.
right? I told you guys this is the one that I
Yes,
can't even leave in the
my favorite.
studio because the wife
Yeah.
wants it at home in one of our rooms because she really liked that TV. So
The
they
Z95A?
won the Z95B. Yep, they won
Yeah.
the preference, even though they may have lost the reference. But this goes to a
That's
larger
fine.
discussion. The reference is no longer good enough, meaning creator's intent. I have questions about it. We love HDR, or we love the intent of HDR, which is to give filmmakers tools to make things a little bit better, a little pop a little bit more. And Dolby Vision is supposed to bring that to the table, right? So a lot of people commented on our shootout as well as on Vincent's comparisons that, wait, where's Dolby Vision? Almost everyone who buys a TV leaves,
Yeah.
they don't use a streamer, they use the internal app, and every internal app automatically enables Dolby Vision if it's available. You cannot disable it. So that takes us to the relevance of either shootout, because unless you're using an external streamer that's not Dolby Vision, it's not relevant to you. So let me ask you that, Brian. If everyone you know is watching an internal app, you would have to tell them this shootout is completely irrelevant to you because
So,
one, Dolby Vision color is
yeah.
different than what you're going to see. Number
Yeah.
two, it could be dimmer, it could be brighter, who knows, because the streaming version
Yeah.
of Dolby Vision is nothing like what you're going to see from a Blu-ray
Yes.
disc. We don't
So
know.
the worst part about this conversation is I drove FOMO crazy with the G5 because I was taking freaking pictures of the G5 in Dolby Vision. Then he had to run the same movie, Extraction, through the reference monitor, right? We took pictures of all the TVs, and then he goes to me, oh man, there's no Dolby Vision on the reference monitor. So while I'm sitting here, there must be, if somebody looked at our phones, they'd be like, what the hell's going on with you and this guy? We're sending pictures of Chris Helmsworth back and forth. The fact is, we could not pinpoint, even without the reference monitor, what are you seeing on your TV versus mine? I'd rather just get rid of Dolby Vision completely and circumvent it because the TVs all, they try to, the G5 is very dark in Dolby Vision. Now that it's been fixed, they're all dark. And I don't mean Dolby Vision Vivid, I mean
Fixed.
just Dolby Vision. So now they're fixed, they're all dark. And then I see the reference monitor, I'm like, oh my God, why does that look so good? No Dolby Vision, which is why they
Yep.
have Dolby Vision 2 coming out. So for me, I think going forward, that's why the last few years, I would never base my choice of buying a TV on Dolby Vision. That used to be a reason 3 years ago. Now I'd buy a Samsung in a heartbeat. Dolby Vision is not
Yeah.
as important because it's, and we saw that FOMO with Netflix capping at 100 nits. It's very hard. So for me, um, I know that Robert and some of the others were thinking about putting it in our shootout, and everyone's like, "Guys, it's impossible. We can't even begin to do it."
There's
And to
no
your point, why?
reference monitor Dolby. There's no Dolby Vision
Yeah,
reference. Yeah.
which makes no sense because everything is streaming now, and Dolby Vision's become so heavily weighted on, say, Netflix. But to your point, FOMO, when we say like, "Hey, you bought this TV based on the shootout," and then you put it in Netflix, you're like, "I can't even see the guy." You're like, "Oh, I didn't do the shootout in Dolby Vision. I'm sorry, I blocked it." So, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm actually going to use a splitter on my G5 and just block it. That's the way I've done it, just because it's so dark. And the whole thing is, we've said, FOMO, Dolby Vision is supposed to be the creator's intent to the maximum. Well, if that guy, like Game of Thrones, I can't see anything. It doesn't really help anybody. So I'm literally going to just skip past that and just do something else.
Yeah. Well, this is
At least
interesting.
until
So
Dolby Vision 2,
we
the sequel, Return of the Jedi.
we have a couple of interesting comments we're going to hit, but let's get the super chat done. Joel Masnuke, thank you for that.
Hi, Joel.
77-inch G5 or S95F for console gaming and 4K cinema, UHD, Blu-ray, also hockey. Bedroom converted to an office media room. G5 is $3,900, S95F is $4,100. General guesses on Black Friday discounts. Thanks. So I don't know if Canada has the 5-year panel replacement warranty, or if that's even important to you, but maybe part of that consideration is the G5 does have a 5-year panel replacement warranty in the USA. I don't know if it covers Canada, so double check on that. But if it does, then that's an extra bit of quality of life you're not going to get out of the S95F,
Yeah.
which is limited to the retailer and manufacturer warranty. If you're lucky, 1 year, and if you buy an extended warranty, then that's fine, right? Get it for both TVs. Personally, I think the G5 for console gaming is fine. Hockey, definitely good. I think bright white hockey is what the G5 is designed to do. S95F,
Yes.
I don't think is going to maintain that bright white as well as the G5. Now, on the other hand, in bright white, your G5 may have tinting, pink tinting, that you may or may not notice. S95F won't have that, but it won't get as bright. So that's
Yeah.
kind of like you have to decide these little, the lesser of the evils. For gaming, I prefer S95F. But G5 is not terrible. And if you look at the gaming reviews, right, Brian, the G5 kind of fell behind this year. But who knows? Maybe it's a firmware update from being near perfect. And the Samsung ditched HGIG temporarily. We don't know if it's been reintroduced yet, but they promise they will if that's important to you. So I think either way, now I do like the motion options on the S95F for low frame rate console games, especially the older ones, and maybe Switch. S95F offers more of that frame interpolation technology that's really well thought out. But then
Yeah.
G5 HDR might be more accurate because it's always been an HGIG thing for them. Brian, I think this kind of goes to which would you choose, given the two?
Yeah. I mean, right now, the S95F is just really the more complete TV. The G5 has had some issues. It's working through them right now. It's got to work through some HGIG issues, which isn't conversely a problem with the S95F because it doesn't have HGIG right now, I don't think. For console gaming, they're both amazing. I give the edge to the S95F. There's just more flexibility of what you can do with the image on the S95F. I would give the edge to the G5 as far as hockey because the in-person QD OLEDs can look a little pink. But the S95F really kind of is the best, I think, the most complete all-around TV right now. So I'd give the edge to the S95F.
Brian, you are such a shill.
Look at
Look at
Alan
that.
put his face out there too.
All right. I will take on that challenge. Okay, so
Alan's face like, woo!
Army
Uh,
LRS, make a video about the 17,000 hour half-life of these panels. I bet you'll never talk about that. And Army,
yeah.
people are buying new TVs every it's out of my control. I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, the
Yeah.
half-life
I
is,
mean,
not only that, the Sony OLEDs are actually, it's dimming over time in terms of years. Is probably the most aggressive. It gets dimmer and dimmer every year, more so than the other brands. So let's talk about it. When you get an OLED, you're going to suffer slight dimness after 17,000. And you're okay with that after 17,000 hours. I mean, Brian and I, we
I
get
mean,
new
well,
TVs every year or two, so it
yeah.
doesn't affect us. But I don't know.
Well, yeah, and Army, I appreciate that. You bet we'll never talk about it. We're not in the place to talk about it. My TVs, my C1 has less hours on it than yours. I promise you that. Same with my A80L. So we're too busy making content to actually. I'm not saying feel bad for us. I don't use my TVs anywhere near the amount you are. My G5 is still here. So we test them, we watch them while we edit. Right now, the Valerian gets the most use in my house. It's a projector because it's in my bedroom. But as far as the stress test, that's where ratings is really, they're
Well,
really doing it.
let me jump into
It's
about the
structural.
ratings. So Army, this is
Yeah,
worse. This is even worse. The TVs fail before they even get to
structurally.
the half-life. So,
Alan, love you, baby.
power panels are breaking. You got these weird vertical banding. So the panels don't even get to 17,000 half-life. So before your TV even dims, you're going to have to replace this. So let's talk about that. And I've been
Yeah,
complaining about
so we're
that
like,
forever, which
so
is
you're like, the leg
get
falls
your,
off of it.
doesn't even turn on. My friends, get yourself an extended warranty. If you're buying a TV
Oh man.
that's like quote unquote an investment, meaning it's a lot of money, pay the extra few hundred for an extended warranty. That's what I would put the savings
Yeah,
towards. So if you go on Black Friday, you save $400. Well, yay! Put it towards an extended warranty because these TVs are
yeah.
not like a guitar or a piano, right? You
No.
buy it and it
Well,
lasts until the next generation. No.
and when we start talking about that, just with other appliances, you guys hate when I compare them to appliances, but you used to pay that extra money for this certain brand because there was longevity. Now, if it's a few years, like, what do you want, man? It's a few years old. So, I mean, and I think what you're saying about longevity is very interesting. Because we talked about this with our Sony hate video. You guys don't want to pay the extra money, but you want longevity. You don't want
Hmm.
them to be disposable, but you want them for $1,000. So that's why these shootouts are not value shootouts. They're not considered what's the best value or what's the best gaming TV. These two shootouts that we're talking about, that does not weigh in. If you want to talk about the best value, go to Costco, grab a QM6K Pro, call it a day. 100
Hmm.
inches, you're done. Or 98 inches, whatever it is. So these are very specific things. And as far as longevity, if you're an enthusiast in a cave watching it, are you watching it as much as a family FOMO who's running the TV 24/7? So an enthusiast TV probably lasts longer. It probably just gets used when they're watching movies. So it's a very interesting Army. That's a great question, but him and I as individuals can't even pretend to make that work out.
Yeah. I just realized I forgot to
Hey, Joe.
give Joel his
What's up, Joel?
general guesses on Black Friday discounts. So Samsung discounts will be the most aggressive. So although
Oh,
it shows 4,100, no, I'm talking USA. I don't know how the Canadian Samsung is going to approach this, but in the USA, consistently, Samsung S95F has been hundreds and hundreds cheaper than the G5 or the G4, right? So whether it was the S95D or the S95C, it consistently undercut the G5 by several $100 before Black Friday, like now, right? Now you're going to see the S95F aggressively discounted over the next few weeks. So definitely, if you're looking for value, the S95F will be it. The G5, although we'll get a discount, never as aggressive as the Samsung. Now, maybe it'll be different this year, but I don't think
yeah.
so. And let's see, ABL.
S90F, baby. S90F is the way. That's the bargain TV. You can get the
Oh,
S. If you
actually,
go to
that
Costco,
Brian, that question is next. Is the ABL
dude,
really aggressive on the S95F? No, it's not. It's a lot better. I
no,
think the G5 ABL
yeah,
is better actually. But this
yeah,
this
I don't
gets to
trust it.
your comment, Brian.
Oh
How
man, dude.
close is the S90F to the S95F? Is it really only comparable to the C series? And my answer to you, Bebop, is it destroys the C series.
Yeah, it's
This
better.
the
Like take
S90F
it over.
is S95F Lite. It is literally the S95D.
Yeah,
I had it
it
next to
is.
the
And
S95D. I'm like, oh, it's the same
yeah.
TV. It is an amazing TV. It
Well,
is
the
my
best part
editor's
about the S.
choice.
Yeah, well, dude, it's been like that since they came out with it. And the S90 is the one where if you go to a big box store like a BJ's or Costco, I mean, before you buy the S90F, look for that S90D, man. It's sitting there at.
Hmm.
Somebody told me BJ 77-inch was $1,700 for an S90F. I mean, like that's incredible. They are quantum dot OLEDs. They're brighter than the C series, and I love the C series. But it's not like the C series has micro lens array. It's just a W OLED. So the S90, every year we give it as our most recommended TV.
Yep.
I mean, I have one over here. Every time I turn it on, I'm like, damn.
I love the S90F. Okay, so the two things the S95F does better, objectively, it will hold a brighter
Empty your
scene
wallet.
like hockey, right? Yeah, empty your wallet.
Your
It
money.
holds a bright hockey scene
So Marcus.
SDR brighter,
Yeah.
longer, if that's important to you. So if you need bright
Yeah.
hockey in a bright room, S95F. But if you're watching anything streaming, they look identical, indistinguishable. Now, if you're watching Jennifer Gala, S95F will pop more. But if you're
Yeah.
watching anything from Columbo all the way up to The Witcher on Netflix, they're going to be the same. And so, and even gaming, they perform, as far as I'm concerned, very similarly. Except the biggest difference you will notice is the anti-glare matte coating. If you need that anti-glare, you have to get the S95F. It's not available on the S90F.
You can
And if
just
you
peel it
watch,
off.
you peel it off like me and me. It comes a mirror, right? So,
Sorry about that.
and this gives us kind of like a general discussion about skin tone. I think S95F filmmaker mode skin tone, excellent. It represents all people of shades and color. It's very accurate. Thumbs up to Samsung
Yeah, yeah.
filmmaker mode.
The days of Samsung being a cartoon, um, you know, is crazy. I gotta give a shout out to GamingTech who just jumped in the video. GamingTech, what's up, Marcus? This guy does such great content about like gaming, right? Talk about touching into gaming FOMO. Almost
Uh,
every game that freaking comes out has a raised black in HDR. And this poor guy buys though. If you go to his channel and please subscribe, because he has to buy these games. And I swear, every time the freaking HDR is broken, and thank God you don't have a G5, Marcus, because the HDIG is a mess right now. But for this guy works so hard, and I feel bad. He's like, it, it's broken. It's so raised. So he puts in a lot of work, works his butt off, Marcus. Much love to you, bro. Because I sure as hell was just testing HDIG. I don't want to touch it because I had 3 TVs going. I'll definitely hit you up offline, but give him a subscribe. He works his butt off, man. He's awesome.
yep, yep. Any questions I have about HDR calibration on the PS5 or
Yeah, I
Xbox,
tune in
whatever
every
for
video.
it,
I tune
you
in.
gotta
I
tune
tune in
in.
just to tell me that it's broken. I'm like, thanks. You know, he's kept me from buying so many games. So I'm like, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, just real quick. So, we're on Dolby Vision. And Flat Panels, Rasmus, our friend, did a great
What's up,
job
Rasmus?
sending
Yep.
questions to Dolby Vision. And I thought the answers were kind of evasive, right? Obviously, they can't commit to anything. But this was probably the
Yep.
best answer is, and this is what I'm excited about. That's why I put this up. So all your Dolby Vision 2 questions answered, but specifically this one. With bidirectional tone mapping, which means the TV is now sending signals back and forth with the source. So now they're talking. You know the capability of the TV. Uh, the upward tone mapping, meaning making the scene brighter to match the TV. Is it reserved for specific Dolby Vision picture modes on TV? And the answer is yes. So the TVs that are coming out with Dolby Vision 2, you're going to have creator's intent, which is exactly how the creator intended. But what I highlighted, this is the important part, is the content can be mapped to higher luminance levels than the grading suite reference. And of course, this is I'm going to put in quotes, guided by the new metadata that signals the content creator's instruction for mapping to higher performance displays. So what does this mean? It means if you have a 10,000 nit TV, which is going to be out next year, will content be pushed into that 10,000 nit space to really pop? Because now there's enough information. And it's implying that only if the creator allows it, but I think the creator
Here we go.
doesn't care. If the creator doesn't care, I think the TV is going to have a little bit of leeway with that. I think you're going to see some fun movies. I cannot wait to see Superman 2025 in Dolby Vision 2 put onto a 10,000 nit TV. What could it really do, right? So my hope is Dolby Vision 2 is looking like it's going towards that direction, which is making bright TVs relevant. Because right now, bright TVs are irrelevant. Doesn't matter if your TV can do 6,000 or 9,000 nit, your source is 500 nits. It'll be 500 nits. And so what did you pay all that money for? Nothing. So this is a great thing for those who, Dolby Vision 2 to me may be a must-have because Dolby Vision 1 is definitely not important at all. It was done during an era when TV sucked, and Dolby Vision made those sucky TVs slightly better for tone mapping.
2015.
Yep. But now the
It
TVs
was
are so
HDR,
good.
the birth of HDR. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. During the birth of HDR, when all the TVs struggled, the first 3 or 4 years may have been relevant, but now they have to move on. So, all
Yeah.
right.
I could
Uh,
absolutely care less.
yeah.
I don't. I could care. I mean, to me, Dolby Vision 2, unless it's software and you can upgrade your TVs, I think it's going to cut the line. I know what's so funny about the way you and I approach things. You're so excited about it, and I don't care because I think so many of our viewers want to buy right now, and we're getting into another format war.
Yeah.
And they're the worst thing for any industry is to say, well, we just got past not caring about Dolby Vision. Now you tell me that if I have a really bright TV, I have to then wait for Dolby Vision 2. And now I'm back to Netflix looking up in the corner to see if Dolby Vision 2 is in the corner. And then you're watching a movie just to find out that the Superman guy says, no, I'm not going to allow that. They're not, I mean, I have to cover it because I'm in this industry, but I hate the idea of it. I think it's a nightmare. I think if they did it software wise and you can upgrade to it, that'd be great, or buy a player that enhances, say, a streaming device that has Dolby Vision 2 um, that can enhance it, fine. But I am not looking forward to another. I'm not buying, because if you look at this FOMO, if Dolby Vision 2 is a thing, that means there has to be a an HDR10 plus 2. Samsung has to, because they're going to have the RGB micro LED, and that's a whole nother thing. And we just got done with that. And, oh,
So,
man.
I'm glad you brought up Samsung. So I want to hit Michael's comment first. 400 nits is plenty enough for movies. So, Michael, I'm not saying that the average picture level, like the whole scene, is 4,000 nits
Especially
or
with highlight
1,000
movies.
nits.
Hold on.
The whole
Yeah.
scene may be 30 nits, right? But then the specular highlight would be 4,000 or 5,000 nits, and it's a tiny little highlight, but that makes all the difference in the world. So the whole scene is still dark, or whatever it is, right? It doesn't change. So whatever you're watching, let's say Superman again, right? Where the whole scene looks like the brightest level is 93, 95 nits, but then the average picture level is more like 30 nits. That 30 nits doesn't change, but that highlight that's 90 nits is now 4,000 nits. And that is how you see sunlight, right? In sunlight, you see, oh, the bright sun, but
Yeah.
everything else is not bright, right? You got the dark shade,
Yeah.
and that gives you that range. And I think that's what we're missing in the movies that do need it to make it feel like, you know, Superman movies, right? Superhero movies, right? So I think
Yeah.
that will make a huge difference. And
Yeah.
there was a question about the player, but yeah, no, like you said, Brian, you don't really need it. No, you don't. But if you're an HDR fan, that's for
Well, I
HDR.
mean, and I think what's made me a little bit sour on it is what we've talked about with Dolby Atmos and how much is happening in your height channels and is there bass in your movies and being through these format wars. I mean, I'm 50 something years old. I've been through every format. I've been on the wrong side of a lot of them. But to say like, hey, we've always had this in technology. I have the TV, I have the receiver, I have the speakers. Oh, by the way, Atmos isn't there yet. Or I've had Blu-ray players. We've had all these things. We had HD TVs before there was even a player that had the Xbox HD TV player. We've had all these things just to have them say, oh, by the way, that one's not in 4K. This one is not
Right.
in Atmos. Oh, by the way, that movie is in Dolby Vision, but this one isn't. It's just not good for a business that is already struggling badly. Our business is on life support as far as people buying TVs, as far as
Hmm.
there's the margins are very small. You're going to divide that further. And now what's going to be the next thing? How come my expensive TV doesn't have Dolby Vision 2, but this cheap TCL has it, or this Hisense has it? And
And
now we
Hisense does
know,
have it. Yeah.
and Hisense does have it. We know that a lot of really budget-friendly TVs had Dolby Vision when other high-end TVs didn't have it. It didn't make that TV better. So it's really going to be another thing. And then, like you said, we talked about it, FOMO. Now I'm going to go out and buy those movies again to have Dolby Vision 2?
Yep.
I
That's
see them.
one-eyed
You're out of your,
Kanecki's comment. Yes, you do.
yeah,
Yep.
and you're out of your mind. And this is where I'm going to get a little loud. 4K Blu-rays and a lot of with HDR and Dolby, and this is what I think killed the industry. Blu-rays looked better half the time in SDR. They were brighter, they were more detailed. So you lost so many video files with 4K. A lot of us double dipped. I have hundreds of them where sometimes the Blu-ray looked better. So you want me to buy again? No way. That's why Apple TV is great. If they upgrade it, FOMO, they do it automatically. But they're not going to do that with Dolby Vision 2. And if they do, it's going to leave a lot of people out in the cold. So unless they do it software wise, it's not something I'll cover it, like I said, because I'm in the industry. But I feel bad for the consumers. I think it's going to cause a lot of problems.
I think that
Gaming?
Okay, so
Yeah,
I
right.
think enthusiasts will love it because it gives them an option. Well, when I say enthusiasts, not the purists, because purists want creator intent, but we're talking about
Yeah,
the technophiles, right? People who
yeah.
want to embrace the latest technology. They will want to match Dolby Vision 2 streaming content with a Dolby Vision 2 TV. So they can play with this HDR impact that I've been talking about, but no one ever gets because the source doesn't have that impact. And like Fritz says right here, and Brian, you'll appreciate this. As soon as they put Columbo on disc with Dolby Vision 2, I'm unloading my bank account for it, right? Because
I totally
imagine
agree.
Columbo, Dolby
Yeah.
Vision 2, suddenly he walks into a room, bright sunlight. It's like, wow, it feels like I'm there,
Yeah.
right? Whatever that may
So, so, here,
mean.
here's the bull crap of that whole thing, Fritz, and I get you. I remember when HD came out, it was like, look at his face. You can see the pores. Yeah, that lasted for a small period of time. If it's not there in the source, it's not going to matter. You can get Columbo, and all of a sudden he'll be orange. The whole scene's going to be 3,000 nits, and it's not that it's not the intent. It's going to be blown out. It's going to be noisy. You're going to have grain. Then you're going to have motion problems. So it's going to be a very bumpy road. And look, we've talked about this with Mad VR. There's all kinds of devices that increase resolution and brightness over the years. You try them once, and then you're like, oh, I'm not going to, So I just think it's going to be a very slippery slope. And, and like you're saying, it's shot on film, but it wasn't shot at 4,000 nits. You're going to create 4,000 nits for Star
Well,
Trek?
what I think, I think it's
I'm buying
essential.
it too, though, by the way.
I think it's essential because why else get a bright TV, right? If you're getting a
Yeah,
5,000 nit
yeah.
TV, you need Dolby Vision 2. Otherwise, get a 1,000 nit TV.
But that
Nothing
is
is
such
above
a
1,000 nits. That's the
but
thing.
FOMO, that's such a slippery slope. That means now you have a guy spending $20,000 to watch two Dolby Vision 2 movies.
Well,
And
only
that's the
if he
problem.
buys it next year. If he waits a few years, it'll be trickling down to a $700 Costco special Hisense TV,
I mean,
right?
I 100% agree. I think the part that I struggle with is exactly what you did in your video is that the filmmakers don't care. They still didn't know how to implement HDR. They didn't know how to do 3D for years. Only a few, James, what's his name? Freaking Terminator. He's the only one that knew how to use 3D. The one guy that knew how to implement it. So it's like James Cameron. Like
Hmm.
it's the same way with brightness. You have certain movies that are great at HDR. Disney's not doing great audio mixes anymore. F1 was a disappointment. Though you saw F1 in the theater, you bring that home, it's a completely different mix.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yes, if Dolby Vision unlocks that, I just highly doubt that's going to happen. My point is, I
Well,
don't see them caring about the consumer soon.
yeah, I think it's a discussion we're going to look back in maybe 3 years once all the platforms bought it. I think this CES, we're not going to hear any announcements, but next CES, you're going to hear Netflix, Disney Plus, Apple, and then the following year, all the TVs will have Dolby Vision 2 on their TVs. So
Everyone's
I
telling me
think in
James Cameron.
probably 2.5 years, we'll start reviewing Dolby Vision 2. But until then, all we can do is dream and hope for the best and expect the worst, like you, Brian.
Yeah. Well, I have a question for the audience. So, from when I talked about this before we came on, will these shootouts matter to you? Even as early as next year, when Sony releases the Bravia 10 or whatever it's called, that will officially be the flagship. The Samsung Micro LED, when that TV becomes the flagship, will these enthusiast shootouts matter to you if only 65-inch OLEDs are in that? So, is that really gonna? Do you see what I'm saying? Are you guys gonna care about these? That's not in the top of the line anymore.
I
So
don't
every
think it would
manufacturer.
even. So, Brian, it won't even be in the shootout. Would that make them mad? Because the people
That's what I'm
hosting the
saying.
shootout will not choose that TV. They'll probably.
That And that's what I'm saying is that so next year and the year after when we're at these shootouts and it's three or four OLEDs and you guys are talking about these ultra bright, like that's not going to be the Helder. Will it matter when it's not the flagship? Right. So I think that's going to be the problem. Right now, those TVs are the best of the best from each manufacturer. Next
Mhm.
year, starting from Sony, that will not be the best TV in their lineup. their
It
RGB
definitely,
micro
yeah.
LED will be.
So this is where the speculation comes in. How they label it is so important, right? So if Sony labels the A95L successor as the Bravia 10, and I'm taking the
True, for
even
instance.
number theme, right? Bravia 8, so the one better than the Bravia 8 OLED is the Bravia 10 OLED. So let's say the Bravia 10 is the best QD OLED out there. And then you have the Bravia RGB LED, whatever that ends up, Bravia 11 or Bravia 9 Mark II. If it's Bravia 9 Mark II, then that Bravia 10 QD OLED will be the top. But if it's the Bravia 11 or the Bravia Max or whatever it is that ends up being the Halo, that would technically be their Halo product, but shootout organizers will still choose the Bravia QD OLED next year and not include the other TV. And then you're going to have people saying, hey, it's not a real shootout if you don't include those TVs. And then every organizer will say, I'm sorry, it's not good enough. That will be their response, whether it's Vincent, Ratings, me, you, Robert even, right? Like, I'm sorry, against a reference
Yeah.
monitor, this QD OLED or whatever their flagship OLED ends up being is the best at 65 inches, not this other technology.
Well, and we talked about in our video about OLED maybe not surviving is that we agree it's the best technology. So unless I have no guarantee Sony's going to do another OLED, or if they'll do one next year. That's not what they've been doing. The A9G had a couple of years. A95L had 3 years. I can't see them just releasing another one next year. They may, but
Yeah.
they'd be looking more at doing a Bravia 9 successor next year because that'll be its third year. So the way they're changing the industry is I don't think OLED is going to be the priority for them. I didn't think it was a priority this year. There wasn't a 77-inch. So there's
Mm-hmm.
no guarantee. We'll see where the market goes. But I just wonder about the future of these shootouts if that's not the best of the best anymore.
Yeah. And hey, asks, hey, check out the Hisense L9Q. I have it. I'm checking it out now. It's all set up. I'm putting together something this week. So yes, look for it. But I do like it a lot. It is definitely a slight upgrade over the PX Pro 3, which I also have. I like that one a lot, but this one definitely is an upgrade. It's a little bit more expensive. I think it's $49.99, like almost 5,000 MSRP. So probably after Black Friday, it maybe it'll be around 4,000 or maybe less. It is probably the best ultra short throw projector out there right now. If you guys are looking for an ultra short throw, for sure. Okay, I think we've been on for 90 minutes. Brian, let us
Well,
know what is your
so I
takeaway from all of this now?
so I have one comment I want, and it's you'll see the display audio tech. And I sent this video to you the other day about Linus's no, not Plasma. What's up, Plasma? It's he's talking about the RGB mini LED from Linus's video.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's a great conversation because that jump from where we are now to micro RGB or RGB mini LED is not going to be as smooth as many of us think it's going to be. The haloing, some of that blooming is to be expected as they work out the kinks. We know there's going to be blooming by the color. The thing that scared me a little bit about Linus's video was the input lag in gaming. So it's like, we're at OLEDs now where it's almost perfect. The pixel response is so instantaneous. Anything's going to be a step back as far as mini LED or micro LED. So I think that's going to be very interesting is that transition's not going to be that smooth. It's going to be very bumpy, I think, which is why I still buy OLEDs. I can predict their demise, but I still love them and never want them to go anywhere. But the RGB mini LED, I think with Linus's video shows you it's not going to be as smooth as we think. It's going to take some
Yeah.
time.
Well, and other comments are, and this could be it. Oh, and by the way, guys, hey, over 200 people watching, 100 likes.
Yeah,
Click
please
like,
hit like,
guys.
guys.
Get it out there. Okay, so they're not surprised. Hisense is attempting a first gen product. Right? This is definitely a very first gen for them. And we saw the Sony RGB LED prototype. And to give context, Sony has been working on this for over 10 years now. So you have a product that's been in development, right? 10 years, Sony. And then you have Hisense pulling stuff off the shelf, trying to cobble something together in the last 2 years. I suspect the Sony RGB LED is going to be much more polished, but that doesn't come cheap. You're basically repaying them for 10 years of R&D on RGB
Yeah.
LED. And that, I think, is going to make a big difference. Now, it may not be as bright, but it doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be 8,000 nits, right? As long as it's
No.
slightly brighter than the Bravia 9 and outperforms it, it's going to be a winner.
Yeah. Well, and FOMO too. I think also what we see with, you know, when we see Sony coming out with their own technology, it's not, is this their own panel? Is this their own Frankenstein's monster? Is this their own thing? I think that's interesting because I'm not sure Samsung's is their own. Is it Hisense's? Is TCL? So it's always interesting who's
Yeah.
borrowing from who. Now,
Yep.
I do remember when I said that because we did a video on
Wait.
it.
So you're commenting on, remember when QD OLED came out, Brian, the S95B, and you said it was the end of WOLED. Okay.
And it is. It was
It is.
the end of WOLED. So I don't know why you're acting like I wasn't right. G5 is not a just WOLED. There was MLA right after that. So WOLEDs are not dead, but QD
Yet.
OLED simply is much better. And you saw now. Do you see WOLEDs competing at the shootout? No,
Not
they're
doing well.
RGB tandem OLEDs.
But I
They're
mean, that's still
micro lens array.
WOLED. But look at WOLED, how far behind it's fallen.
Exactly.
It
So had
got
QD OLED
killed.
not come out, if it had not come out, it would have not moved forward. If anything, LG was so slow to implement MLA, which they already had. Now the fact is, I remember that conversation. We also said mini LED was dead by the way the market was going and how good QD OLED is. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, but I'll tell you right now, they're both going to die because mini LED, cheap mini LEDs are destroying everything. So
I
I'm just
think
watching.
it's not even so much as RGB LED or RGB mini LED destroying OLED.
Mini LED.
It's mini LED that comes in at under $1,000 and you get 85 inches, like QM6K. 85 inch QM6K, $999 or 900 something. That is the end of OLED because OLED at that price is the LG B5, maybe 65 inch, 55
not
inch.
even.
Can't compete.
They cannot compete. And here's the thing: is we talk about, and that's why that video did well, and our conversation did well. It's very rarely the superior technology that lives. A lot of times, the better technology loses and dies off. But going back to this,
I have to make a correction at Vincent's shootout, the G4 One 2024. But I will tell you.
Did he say that it didn't win?
Well, we were saying that WOLED lost to QD OLED both years. Now, I believe it did. I will stand by that. I don't think the G4 should have won, but they won for other reasons other than image quality.
That is not. Yes, that is a WOLED. That's a WOLED with micro lens array.
Right,
that's not a C series off the freaking bench. It's still a WOLED, but it's an enhanced WOLED. So you're still missing the boat. The joke about the Bravia, the A95L winning his shootout this year was the point that the G4 won last year.
Okay, so which takes us to the A95L. If the Sony Bravia 8 Mark II won the shootouts, does that mean the A95L might have won 3 years in a row?
No, I just said
no.
That.
Wait, you know what? I think it would have. You know why?
It may have won. It may have won ours. It wasn't going to win.
It might have won ours, but why wouldn't it win Vincent's? Because the G5
it didn't win last year.
Well, yeah, because it didn't win last year. That's right. Oh no, but Vincent changed the rules. Vincent changed the rules this year. He didn't calibrate it. He brought in Sony to calibrate it.
Totally get that. But while the G5, while the G5 behaved, I think the G5 is worse. And it's
or actually, Brian, no. Would the G4 have won this year? If we brought the same rules into last year, would the G4 have won? It could play it both ways.
It may. The G4 might have, but I mean, I think the S95F processing wise has improved a lot.
Yes.
So I think the S95F wins that. Now the A95L is excellent. It's a Gen 2 panel. So I mean there are differences, and I think the fact that the A95 might have won our shootout, they might have won that one.
I actually know. I think it would have, because on our shootout, the SDR, Sony ran away with that by such a long margin. And at the
Yeah.
end, I think Dwayne said the A95L was better than the Sony and
Yeah,
the thing
because
it won. So it may have won this year at our
it
shootout
may have
again.
won. Well, and it's like the Bravia 9, as you said, the Bravia 9 is only improved over the years with updates. So the A95L may be more improved, but as far as
Right.
the extra brightness of the Bravia 8 Mark II, doesn't really help it in our shootout. In the HDR Impact, it wouldn't have helped it.
I think WOLED needs to go on pricing. And this is what we've said. As long as it maintains this premium pricing, it's going to die. But there's already rumors, I'll put a video out on it next week, that LG Display has found ways to cut costs further so they can drop prices, hopefully by half. And if they can do that, WOLED won't die. But that was my big caveat. They cannot
Yeah.
survive at that pricing. They would have to cut that pricing by at least half
Yeah.
to be competitive because size aside, there are people shopping 65-inch TVs, but ultimately you make money on volume. You can't make money on boutique sales
Yeah.
of something that's so expensive to develop every year. They're putting out a new TV every year. This isn't like, again, a
No.
guitar where it's the same technology for 10 years before you do
Yeah.
anything
Or
different,
even
right?
speaker, well, even speakers and receivers FOMO, right? But I mean,
Mhm.
I'm telling you, in my Costco video, I sold two QM6Ks. And there's regular people, as I'm standing there in the Costco filming, real people, their budget was $500. And when I pointed to the S90 or the B series, they were like, wow. So anyway, that was it. It was that quick. And the thing is, FOMO, they wanted to leave that very day with the TV. A few minutes later, you see the Costco employee pulling the TV down the aisle. Those are the real numbers, and those are the real people that are buying. A lot of us enthusiasts were so busy combing through the weeds that we don't buy. We see the best enthusiasts have plasma still. It
Yeah.
doesn't move the needle. So
Yep.
it's that guy and his wife and that other couple that bought the TVs that actually moved the needle. They bought the TV, they're home watching it. We're here chatting about it, not buying a
And
damn thing.
David Navas is saying, wow,
What's up,
50%
Dave?
dip would be astonishing. It would be
Yeah, that's why I find
astonishing
it
as far as
impossible.
us enthusiasts. Oh my God, the LG C5 is half the price. But if it doesn't do
Yeah,
that, which would be basically get the LG B5, drop it a little bit, improve its
yeah,
performance. That's your 50% dip because the B5 is already $1,000, right?
yeah,
But you need to drop it a little bit more and then make it match the C5 because there shouldn't be both a
yeah.
B5 and a C5. That's just too confusing.
It's
Get
yeah,
rid of the middle,
it's
get
well,
rid of
yeah,
the middle child, the C series, and make the B series your, or drop the C down and get rid of the B series. But either way,
yeah.
it's got to be cheaper. And then have your Halo. I'm
Yeah.
okay with the G series costing what it is.
And what's a shame too, FOMO, we talked about this when we were at M Wave, is that so many people actually preferred the B series. It was more natural, right? So I just recently finished filming the G5 Z95B matchup FOMO, and I told you that my little C4 was there as a little reference monitor. And man, the C4 looked good, right? So it's like OLED at its cheapest is still beautiful. Now it might not be as bright. There was times where the C4 wasn't nearly as bright, but half the time I was okay with it because it looked more natural. The other two TVs pushing to be bright brought out some artifacting. So it's like even at its cheapest, the sharp OLEDs look good. I mean, OLED is still such a beautiful, amazing technology, but it's not being greedy. They're just very hard to make for. They're just hard to mass produce, and they cost a lot.
I think John makes a good point because this isn't what it was decades ago. I think TV manufacturers should not be coming out with a new TV every year with little or no improvement. Work on getting the models the best as it can be and then get it polished, mature before you release it. And it could be every few years. So that's what it was in the 80s, right? You bought a
And you're
Sony
gonna get your wish
Trinitron,
too. Yeah.
right? 3 years later, maybe there's a slight improvement. But it's like every
Yeah.
3 years, there's a slightly better, right? It's slightly flat or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But that's what Sony is used to. And then now
Yep.
you have TCL and Hisense releasing a new model every six
Yeah.
months. It's
And
not even every
they're
year
different.
anymore.
Yeah, and the
Yes.
Hisense, the thing about the Hisense, their design is different. But I think you might get your wish, John, because I think Sony is actually pioneering that, where the other manufacturers are going to look at them and say, wow, the Bravia 9 is still selling at a similar price. A95L was just as popular. The other manufacturers are like, why would we even release new TVs every year? Which is a scary thing for us that cover them. But it's like Call of Duty or Madden. You want a new one every year and you want it to be different. That's a lot of times why they're the same.
Yeah,
So it's really hard. Receivers don't come out every year, speakers don't come out every year. So it's really hard to expect. So think about this: we want the TVs to keep improving, yet the engineering team is already done with the next TV, and they're all ready for CES. So when I reach out to a manufacturer, they're all gearing up for CES for
yeah,
months now. So it's less than 12 months.
it is. And
It's
I think that race is killing them in terms of driving costs
absolutely,
up, but it doesn't drive
yeah,
sales up. They're just trying to preserve their market share by doing that. That's terrible.
yeah.
If you can't
That's got
increase
to be
market
brutal.
share, but you're investing this fixed overhead of R&D every year just to do one minor
Yeah,
update, that's a rough. I mean, it's so rough that LG got
yeah,
out of the cell phone business, right? LG doesn't sell
yeah.
smartphones anymore. They could
No,
afford
well,
to drive change every year only to sell the same number of phones or less the following year.
and I wonder, FOMO, if during that shutdown, which really made everybody buy TVs and sound bars, and everybody said, "Hey, I'm home with the family." Everybody put their phones away for a little bit of period of time. That's over. Everybody's back to looking at their devices. They're back to watching their tablets. So, I mean, we're going to see it shift very soon.
Yeah. And I think this is a good theme. What you mentioned is, this shift to what Michael Beckman's comment is. TV have all gotten so good now. The improved picture quality, they won't sell TVs. I completely agree. It's like cars have gotten so
That's
fast now.
yeah,
Doesn't matter that the
yeah,
car goes 300 miles an hour, 200, 150. I mean, once you go above 150, no one cares. It goes faster, 0 to 60. Once you're under 5 seconds, people don't care
yeah.
anymore, right? Which is like almost every electric vehicle can easily go under 5 seconds if they wanted to. So, what can the TV actually do for me? What else can I use it for? And this is where
Samsung is already doing
Samsung
it. Samsung's already doing it.
Samsung is so far ahead of everyone else here. They got
Yep.
fitness, they got health tracking with their TV, with the rest of your appliances. So, Michael, I think in 3 years, our CES experience is going to be completely different when we talk about TV.
Yeah.
What can it
You're
do for
doing
me?
jumping jacks.
It'll be counting my pills, right? Pill counting.
Yeah.
I mean, or
But
diet, nutrition.
yeah,
It's got a Samsung refrigerator. Your TV saying, "Hey, you need to buy some milk. We notice you're out of milk, and don't forget to get
yeah.
this brand milk." Or we'll order it. You don't have to go out. We're going to go to Amazon. You're going to get your milk
So,
tomorrow,
yeah.
right?
So, Michael, we had this conversation, FOMO and I, the other day as I was walking through Costco. FOMO, you remember this? Is if you guys follow receivers, they were very heavy duty. They were expensive, and then all of a sudden, the receivers that were the most highly rated had the best functionality, meaning Apple Play. They streamed, but what happened? The sound quality disappeared. The power disappeared. So if they get into that lifestyle thing too much, we've already seen it from Samsung. The image quality innovation will disappear.
Oh, it's already disappeared. Samsung is done
So
with image quality innovation.
So zone count, peak brightness, HDR impact, all gone
Don't need
because you
it.
can stream your videos. So I would say I think we all rather have no functionality at all. Give me the bare panel and call it a day, and that's never going to happen. So image
Yeah.
quality will fall apart.
All right. Thank you for the super chat, OG Juice. For PS5 console gaming, Z95B or G5, and kind of movie watching. The G5.
that's a gamer right there. He's like, honey, you want to watch a movie? All right, I'll pause it.
I think you'll be very happy with the G5. Brian, you have a PS5, right?
Yeah.
PS5 Pro.
Yeah.
Would you choose the G5? I would.
Yeah, I would. I mean, the Z95B is also great for gaming, but its strength is really both. The
Movie watching.
Z95B's movie watch, even its gaming, is still very natural and it's very beautiful. OG, but I think you rather go with the G5. It's got more of a hard hit with the HDR impact, and I think you'll find it to be a more streamlined experience. But both are excellent for console gaming. But I would lean towards the G5 just slightly.
Yeah.
If you said
Yeah.
more movie watching, I would say Z95B because its movie experience is beautiful.
Yeah. And let's do this. Ahmad, I heard that the viewing angles are bad on the Bravia 9. So on all mini-LED TVs, the viewing angles are bad. Let's just get out of the way. Among all of them, the Bravia 9 is one of the top, right? So if you're looking at viewing angles, get an OLED. And it's not terrible, but obviously it's a LCD TV. So, but among all the
Yep.
LCD TVs, I found it to be very acceptable among LCD
I wouldn't say,
TVs.
yeah.
but it's better than
would
the
say
Bravia 7 and better
yeah,
than the QM7K. So
yeah.
it's good, but it's an LCD. It's not going to compare to OLED. So absolutely, that's
No,
something to think
when
about.
you're looking at viewing angles, FOMO, we talk about it. Is it blooming or color shift? Which one is which? Are you looking at? But to expect them to compete, even the HVA panels from TCL, the QM6K was the best off angle because it wasn't bright. So
Yeah.
viewing angles are very important to you. What is that? Is that color shift or is that blooming? They're all going to
Or
bloom. These RGB mini LEDs bloom off angle. So you have to go with an
mhm,
OLED. The Bravia
yeah.
9 is not an outlier as far as being worse. What's up, Devlin?
And with OLED, I say get yourself an LG B5, B4 83-inch, and you'll be thrilled. It's at
Yeah.
that size,
So,
the slight drop in brightness is not very important, especially if you have
and
light
that's where
control.
OLED really made its mark, FOMO. Other than the depth, it was always the off viewing angle. Man, people are watching them in the kitchen,
Yeah.
like watching them on the side.
Yep. All right. I think today was a great. Hey, if you guys haven't clicked like,
Yeah,
please
please hit like,
do.
guys.
We're gonna wrap up right now, and I think yep, all caught up on the super chats. And if you have any last minute questions, throw it out there. Weekend's coming up, and it's gonna be a great weekend. My Trojans are playing Michigan. Hopefully, they bounce back from that
Nice,
terrible loss to Illinois. But
awesome.
other than that, Brian, why don't you give me a spoiler? What is your favorite TV? Given everything, right? You got the shootouts, you got everything, but you've seen all the TVs as well as I have. What is your favorite TV of 2025 for you? This is yours, so it's
Well,
not
my
for
well,
viewers.
that's very hard because it's the most flawed. That would still be the LG G5 for me, and it's really by default because it's the only 83-inch option.
Makes
Now that
sense.
might have been the Samsung S95F. If I could just get Samsung to confirm that it was an RGB tandem OLED, I might have bought that one. Nobody would, so I didn't view it. The Panasonic Z95B was my favorite TV for you guys as far as the higher end, but the TCL QM6K is the one that I thought was the best value. A really beautiful TV with the Hisense U6Q right there, but the TCL still has the backlit remote. Just a beautiful little TV that is massive too. So those are my two probably best. But then again, S95F is awesome. I would go with it. If I was in the 65-inch class, that would really suck because there's so many choices.
Yeah,
I'm lucky I
I
don't have to pick, but
I'm in the 65-inch choice. I'm in the 65-inch range, and I'll go 77, right? 65, 77. I do like the Samsung S95F a lot. It's really
yeah,
grown on me.
it's a great TV.
Even though I recognize that in a brighter room, which I often watch, you're going to have that slight raised black, but then the
Yeah,
distraction from glare in the conditions
yeah,
that I watch, I see that glare. And I have to defocus my eyes to ignore the glare, which I don't like doing.
yeah.
Whereas on the matte screen, it doesn't take a lot to make it watchable, right? I mean, you still adjust a little, but if you have glare, there's nothing you can do. You have to completely
No,
close the blinds and curtains. I got way too many windows. So for me, I think my personal TV would be the S95F. I really like what it does.
yeah.
And we're just talking image quality, right? Not the other stuff that Samsung likes to throw in their TVs. But yeah, now, but ironically, my editor's choice is the S90F because it's most of the S95F,
Yeah,
but you
it's
save
I
money on
can't
not
beat it.
having the anti-glare and the One Connect. And I know most of you don't care about the anti-glare, so that's a bonus for you guys. But
Well,
yeah,
funny, FOMO. I was watching Weapons the other day with my wife. I love that movie, and we were watching it on the A80J. I'm like, we gotta close the blinds. She's like, I can see. I'm like, it's a horror movie, and all you can see is our windows. So it was like I actually literally was like, oh my god, this glare is bothering the hell out of me. And it
hmm
actually, the movie wasn't scary for some reason. I don't know. It didn't get dark.
and this is very subjective, right? Very personal. Michael, not bothered by the
Yeah,
glare. And and it depends how bad your glare is. Maybe you have great light controlled rooms. Some people don't see it; they can see right through the glare. So it's
we see
something.
so
That's
many
why I say
TVs though.
for me,
We
right?
see so
Yeah.
many. Yeah,
All
and I
right.
don't think it doesn't look cheap anymore. I saw it in the Q990F. It looks fine. It's just we see so many TVs, guys.
And this is a
What's up,
loaded
Fran?
question. Hey, welcome to the show. Which TV has the best processor? I have
Let's
to
run it
say
back.
it's so dependent on what do you mean, right? Are you
Take
watching
two.
compressed content, streaming internal app? Are you watching DVD player, HDMI? Are you
Yeah.
watching broadcast compression, cable compression? All of that perform differently on all these TVs. And I don't know,
Yeah.
right? So generally
It's all the
speaking, Sony does well consistently, but they're not always the best. And Samsung this year apparently has done very well. I've never had really complaints about Samsung, but how close is the G5 to all of those? I mean, if it's so close,
yeah.
then you might want to choose something else. So I think we're
Yeah.
okay with no longer deciding best processor
Yeah.
for content. Now,
Yep.
gaming, it's a whole different matter, right? Your
Yeah. And yeah.
processing, yeah,
So from what I'll say, I think we're at the point now, FOMO, is it's why I show all the presets. It all depends on which manufacturer you like their style. If you go to the Panasonic, they have the most natural, still great upscaling, but they have 9 presets, right, FOMO, that are filmmaker one, filmmaker two, cinema one, two. They have so many. If you like the way Samsung goes with standard and filmmaker or Sony's professional, so it's almost which manufacturer's presets do you like? Cinema home or cinema on the G5? So,
yeah.
it's there's a lot to that.
Right. So Max is saying, so if we ring a bell, is this a bell? Does Brian go running out of
Ring.
the room? So what
Okay.
was what are you referring to, Max? Did you say anything about ringing a bell and then you would be running out of the
Yeah, did
room?
I miss that somewhere? Maybe it could be. Oh, you know what he's saying? I think you're talking about weapons. Did you
Ah,
see Weapons?
I have not. Is it
Max,
good?
oh my god, that movie's so good. I don't think it's yeah. So it was at 3 o'clock. Yeah, you gotta see Weapons. So yeah, Mike, right.
Weapons.
So
There you go.
Max,
All
if I
right.
run out with my arms out, you don't want me chasing you, dude. That movie's great.
I'll watch
That's a
it.
great. Thanks,
I think
Max.
that's a great way to close off this stream. Thank you, everyone, for showing up.
Thank you,
Brian is
guys.
going to have more of his favorite TVs this year. I'll have my editor's choice video out in a week or so. But yes, everyone, glad you guys showed up. Thank you so much for participating. As always, live streams invite your questions and comments. And until next time, stop the FOMO. See ya.
Take care, guys.